The chair recognizes Mr. Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call up the Conference Committee report on House Bill 1869.
The chair lays out the Conference Committee report on HB 1869 and recognizes Mr. Burrows to explain the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I'm going to take just a moment to explain this. This is policy I care very deeply about. 2 sessions ago, when we were dealing with SB 2, I had made an attempt to make sure that the non-voter approved debt was not part of any of the calculations toward the 3.5% rollback rate. Came back this session. First bill I filed was dealing with that again. Just so you're aware, all debt payments towards the debt 3.5% trigger is not included currently. When I filed the bill, it was all for non-voter approved debt. After the hearing and working with many members on the committee, we ended up taking many other things out. Let me give you the list of the things that we decided not to include in the 3.5%. Self-supporting debt, evidence of a loan program under state or federal financial assistance, refunding bond issued for emergency. Those are the things we made coming out of committee. We also did critical infrastructure, vehicles, renovating existing buildings, transportation zones, streets, roads, highways, bridges, sidewalks. There is a list of them. When I came to the floor, I knew there was still some concern over it. Originally, I was going to say, well, I'll make it just for Lubbock County only because I wanted my taxpayers to have this protection. There were many members on the floor who said, no, we'd like to be included in this as well. We went to the conference committee. We made sure both of Representative Syrier's amendments, thank you very much, were fully included in this. I think everything was included in it. The one thing the Senate said they would not do was to exempt out any counties. So all of the amendments we took on the floor, I think which started because I was willing to make it for Lubbock County only. They said this has to be applicable statewide. I think this is very fair policy. I don't think anybody wants to wake up and find they had a $100 million city hall or a water park or other things built without having the voters an opportunity to vote for it with debt that would actually extend beyond 4 years. Now, they could still use the COs for those things. It would just now count against the rollback rate trigger of 3.5%.
Mr. Rodriguez, for a purpose.
Will the gentleman yield?
The gentleman yields the question. Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman, I wanted to thank you for accommodating a lot of the members here when the bill was originally on the floor. You took my amendment and many other amendments, really bracketing out certain counties, and I know that you did work with a lot of us, but I know you said it, but I'm going to ask you to repeat it if you would. All of those amendments where members wanted to bracket out their counties are no longer in this bill. Is that correct?
The Senate said it had to be, statewide. That was their ask. So I brought it back to the floor. I think it's good policy regardless if you're in Travis County, Lubbock County. In all honesty, Representative, if I could narrow the scope of exceptions for just Lubbock County, I'd be happy as can be because I did this for my taxpayers, not to basically impose anything upon yours.
And I understand you had some issues in your county with maybe some use of COs, maybe perhaps not in the best way. So I understand that. But again, I do want to thank you sincerely for working with a lot of us here. It's unfortunate that a lot of these carve-outs are no longer in there, but thank you for working with us.
Mr. Turner, for what purpose?
The gentleman yield for a question.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Chairman Burrows. I heard you say that the amendments that we adopted on the House side that exempted certain counties have been removed. You took an amendment from me, Representative Jessica Gonzalez, Representative Terry Mesa, Representative Vaughn Davis, who all represent Grand Prairie, to exempt the city of Grand Prairie. Did that amendment remain in the bill?
No, it is statewide applicability. The amendments that we did go back to conference and keep in were both Syria amendments, which dealt with emergency vehicles, jails, things like that. There's a fairly exhaustive list. We took the Moody amendment dealing with the TRZ zones that came back out of conference. So all of them that basically, every amendment that was on what should be exempted out other than particular geographical locations remain in the bill.
Okay, but there's no county or city specific exemptions.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Price, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Of course. Gentleman yields.
Chairman Burrows, thank you. I think you may have just answered my question. I heard you say the Syria, the Moody amendments that were previously adopted in the House are remaining in the conference committee report. Is that correct?
Correct. They both came back out of conference, and Representative Syria was on the conference committee and signed off on it to make sure the body would know that we kept all of that in there. The TER zone, which I think the Moody amendment was, that is actually in there as well.
And there was, if I remember correctly, in part of the Syria amendment, there was a provision that allowed for the improvement of existing buildings. Is that correct?
Yes, let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Renovation of improving existing buildings or facilities. That is in there in my notes.
And public safety is in there as well?
Not broadly defined, but granularly defined. One of the things that I fought against was putting big, broad concepts like public safety or public health in there, because everything is public safety or public health. But we defined it with a lot of the different the smaller subsets that I think captured all of that. But yes, both Serie A amendments are in there, which is what brought everybody, at least most people, on board with the concepts in here.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's really a limitation on their potential.
The chair recognizes Mr. Martinez Fisher to speak against the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, you should know that when this bill was coming up, Chairman Burrows and I were walking up together and we were both laughing. And as a matter of fact, I said, well, should we hold hands? He said, let's go have our tax fight. And I said, well, should we hold hands coming up here? And Chairman Burrows is a good member and did a good job. I've been on Ways and Means for 5 terms now, and what I've learned in those terms is that tax policy almost all the time is not partisan. Tax policy is not partisan. Tax policy is fairness. And when Chairman Burrows brought this bill to the floor, you heard him say just right now that he would have been perfectly fine of just confining this to Lubbock because of behavior and actions and inactions in his backyard, and I respect him for that. I respect any member who gets up here and wants to change 254 counties, looks himself in the mirror the morning of the debate, and says, I don't know how I feel today about winning, and maybe I should draw this back to just my community because that's my problem. And perhaps there might have been a county commissioner somewhere who was going to conferences and laughing and joking and saying that they can get around policy by using certificates of obligation and using them irresponsibly. That's not the case for most of us. The case for most of us is that we have county judges that we have working relationships with. We have mayors that we trust. We have council members that serve in our districts and we work together. They make the decisions on C of O policy. And I will tell you, I might get mad in San Antonio if they decide to do something, but that's their job. And if I want to change it, I'll run for city council so that my voice can be heard. Chairman Burrows did the admirable thing is he started taking amendments on the floor. He started taking amendments to exempt things like police cars. And I will tell you, the exemptions for roads, the exemptions for streets, the exemptions for IT, technology, major systems upgrades, those are my amendments. I put those amendments on. But then, after looking at the policy in total, I felt it better to just take my county out of this conversation. Chairman Burrows, knowing what he was dealing with, acquiesced to my accommodation and exempted Bexar County. And then when you all saw what was going on, many of you organized as a county delegation, and you said, I'd like to be on that program as well. And Chairman Burrows, again, accommodated and acquiesced. And he built support for this bill one member at a time. Now, I congratulate Representative Serie for actually casting a wider net and drawing something a little bit bigger that brought in a few more folks. But for the rest of us, we see the policy for what it is. And so this bill is not about politics. It's about policy. It's about process. We sent what was the expression of this House to the Senate. And again, Chairman Burrows said the Senate has taken a position that it is statewide or nothing. And for the life of me, I can't ever phantom a time where we're just going to accept that and not have a meaningful conference. For those of you who are carved out, I don't know if your phone rang, if your senator called you, or if a senator on the conference called you and said just how important this is to Bexar County. We've made a decision in this House. Chairman Burrows did his level best, and I take him at his word. I was not on the conference, but I take him at his word that he advocated for the position of the House. He advocated for the motions to instruct that this body adopted to say that you will defend the position of the House, including all those amendments. And so I regretfully Because it didn't happen, I ask this House to honor the commitment to each other, to ourselves, and not as a rebuke to Chairman Burrows, not as some sign of partisan gotcha. We have 7 pages of items eligible, and I read them, and you've read them too. There's going to be plenty of time today for us to talk about being partisan. It's not on this tax policy. I ask if you do the right thing, you stand with me, you vote this down, we keep the status quo, and if Ways and Means, we should take this up in the interim, and we should study it soup to nuts, and we should see whether or not CFOs is a problem. I can't speak for Chair Meyer, but as a long-term member of the committee, I would not be adverse to that. I would be willing to do that. And we can come back and carve the correct policy. So I ask you please to vote no against the adoption of the CCR, and then let's start again going into the interim of the 7th. Please vote no.
The chair recognizes Mr. Burrows to close on the report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I will be very clear. We did study this in the interim. This was part of the Ways and Means report coming out of last session, recommending all non-voter approved debt not be part of the 3.5% calculation. This was studied. I filed that bill coming into here. This is important policy. I regret that some counties who may not want to be in here are included, but I promise you, this is one of the few very pro-taxpayer things that we can do this session. I'm not telling you it's the most significant thing. The bill that I filed originally was very significant. Where we've gotten this to is a compromise in working with many, many members. You do not want to wake up and find that 20-year CO debt has been passed over your taxpayers not getting a chance to vote on it, and it's not even included in the 3.5% calculation. This is good policy. It's good policy for Lubbock, Travis County, all of the counties. I hope you'll help me join with me in adopting this conference committee report.
Mr. Burrows moves the House adopt the conference committee report on HB 1869. This is a record vote. The clerk ring the bell. Show Mr. Martinez Fisher voting no, Mr. Burrows voting aye. All members voted. There being 71 ayes and 72 nays, the report fails to adopt.